Hey there, and welcome to Making Pavements. I know it's a bit random and bizarre perhaps, but this is an effort to dress a city looking place, and I decided that rather than building pavements onto my buildings, which would be the other way of doing it, I would actually make them separately so that you can just place buildings on top. The reason for this is this will be very easy to store, and it creates a clear defined area for sort of where buildings go. And I've left it almost like the center is filled with concrete, so there's the foundations, if you like, for the buildings that go in place, and then there's paving slabs running around the edges. In addition to that, in the case of the bigger pieces, the smaller pieces are a single A2 sheet. These are all A2 sheets that I'm using, by the way, of Pavements. I've run a walkway down the middle, so there's two distinct areas for buildings to go, as if there's like some kind of concrete. But equally, you can a building so that you can have it so that the path kind of leads to the main entranceways or what have you. So first up, you get the piece, and I cut the corners off, and I give it a sanding along the edges to give those rounded corner edges. So we'll get that done, and I'll be back in a mo. Okay, so I've got all my edges done and sanded back. It's worth noting that when you're sanding, it's worth putting a curve on whatever the top edge of the board is going to be. So pick your side that's going to be top, and all of these corner edges, just make sure you run around the edge of that, so you just knock the sharp, hard edge off, as well as smoothing out any surfaces. First up is the first etch. I have done stuff in the past where I've marked it up and then etched, but to be honest with you, I find that it's better to just mark a line, etch a line, so all of your markings are literally like, so for instance this first one, I do 5mm off each edge, I do a clean etching line straight down, and I come over these edges as I come over, so that gives you your cornerstone for this bit as well. It's just because it's simple and easy, and then I use that and everything else starts getting measured from that. So first up, I'll take a 5mm in from each edge, mark on 5mm. Having marked, don't do a pencil line, just etch the line, and then you can work from the etching line. As long as everything sits together and is consistent, that's all that really matters in this. Here then, I've got the first etchings lined up, so you've got all of the edges put in. This is the basic framework everything else gets measured from. So next up, I just take 3 inches in off of each edge, and then I'll etch that. Now the important thing from now on is to not cross the etching line, so these also mark where you etch up to for everything else. So I'm going to do 3 inches in, so if the etching line is 5mm, I take 3 inches in from the 5mm, straight along, coming right up to the etch line. 3 inches in this way, straight across to the etch line. And that gives me the framework for starting to put in all the paving. So I'll get that done, I'll be back in a mo. Okay, so there you go, all done. And you can see those lines are now etched in. And for me, the next step, I take 7 inches from this etched line this way, 7 inches from the its fellow, which you can't really see because of the light on the other side, in, and that should leave you with 3 inches in the middle. It's just because I'm using A2 format, and this gives you the central walkway down the middle. So again, I'm just going to quickly etch those in place, and I will show you that in the next steps when I am done. Okay, so here we have it then. Central line is also central line. Lines have been put in. That just gives me the kind of 3 walkways running this way, this way, this way. Also gives you the sort of key building areas. Also taking into account, you could just use this as sort of parkland or a marketplace or what have you, in terms of, I say a parkland, not parkland so much because there's no grass here, but municipal space, if you like. So you could just put a bunch of smaller pieces. You don't have to put a whole building into one of these slots. It gives you some division, and I have been half tempted to hex these spaces, but I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm just going to leave them flat and just say it's like, you know, it's a concreted flat piece. Mostly because etching takes a phenomenal amount of time at the best of times. But next up, You need to put in more of these horizontals like this, inch spaces running along, but leaving the squares here in each of the corners, but also the square here, if I can get it so that you can see the lines. Leave them blank, don't touch them, but do the walkway down the middle. And it's just inch running the or the short direction, so it's inch, 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 inch. And this again is the fastest way I've been finding to put your divisions in. Also at this point you can switch down to a small steel rule rather than a large steel rule, and that makes life a lot easier because it's just a bit more mobile. It's easier to flip about and control basically. So I'm going to get on with that and I'll be back in a mo. Okay, so as you can see I've already divided this up into sort of the inch sections as such. Next we'll start marking out, and the way I'll be marking these out is start with the first section here. I do this as a 1.5 inch, so we get 2 panels each 1.5 inches long, so this is the big paving slabs if you like. And just put a 1.5 inch mark on this first one and a 1.5 inch mark on this last one, just using a pencil, and then I alternate. Now I found, because I've already done this once, and when you're working these things out, do be careful to work them out so that it all works properly. So I now know that if I start this one here is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So this is inch divisions, 1.5. So if this is 1.5, then this is inch divisions. And I also know that because of the number of panels that it works out there are here and in each of these sections here, it gets mirrored on the other side, because where it's an even number here you alternate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and because it's 10 sections that would be 3 1 inch, and then that would be a 1.5, which means I need that to be 3. So there's some flipping around that occurs as you're doing this. Also on these sections going this way, there's, if I start off with the first one being 1, then the second, fourth, then I know that this ends with the same one as it starts with, because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so it's 7 pieces. So basically wherever you have an odd number you end up with the same piece, the same panels at the other end of the odd number that you started off with. And as much as possible, if inversion occurs, then it affects what happens in these corners basically. So I'm going to get all of the 1.5 inch panels and the 1 inch panels marked into all of these slots. I'll get back to you once I've got that done. Catch you in a mo. There we have it then, all of the 1.5 inch spaces all marked out on all of those divisions. So next up is just filling in the squares at the corners, and I'll show you how I go about doing that. First up then, starting from this side, we take an inch in. And this is because we continue this pattern this way, so after the 3 we get the 1.5. Divide. And the 1.5 divide needs to go on this side, so that it also fulfills this pattern, so it's all aligned. And this just keeps everything regular. Then I've been tending to just use these as a guideline, right? So you've already got your 1 inch marked up. Don't do what I just did and mess up the line. But if you do mess up the line, this is where I can show you what to do. Just take the tip of your allspike, start along the line, and occasionally break away from the line, and what this will give you is a crack. So whenever you make these kind of errors, just make something of them so then they become a feature in your terrain. So it's the odd cracked paving tile. You might have just heard me dropping a pencil. And then again you repeat, so you're always alternating these directions. Again I'm using the inch mark from where I've already etched over here. And drop that in. And sometimes you just need to push in just to stop there from being a line there. Also, it just creates a bit of emphasis between the tiles. And then once again, just taking from this inch here. Now you have a choice. You can either divide this one or this one in two, whichever you prefer. I am going to choose to make the one right in the corner, the divided one. So then you start getting this sort of pattern, and then just taking a 1.5 inch mark, running that down into this tile here. This just gives us a nice even paving slabs now. Don't get me wrong, this is 2 inches, this is 2 inches. If you're not happy with that, that's fine. You can work out your own pattern, because any pattern will do, but this just gives you a nice kind of series of L's working into the corners, and that's how I've been doing these. So I'm going to get the rest of these done and I'll be back with you in a mo. There we have it then, all the corner pieces are now etched, so that you have the nice continuous, and everything meshes together. I think it looks quite nice. I'll just see if I can get you a nearly full shot. So next up, I'm just going to be etching in some patterns into the 2 empty spaces that I have left. Now you don't have to do this, you could just continue the paving pattern either from the middle across or from either side across, it doesn't really matter. But I'm choosing to put in just a sort of a hexagonal kind of pattern, just because, you know, it's infinity and you're meant to have hexagons everywhere. I mean, I'm even tempted to etch these open spaces with hexagons, but we shall see. Maybe in the future. But right now, onto this bit of pattern. Anyway, first up then, I've already marked on the key points. This is a 1/2 inch in here, right? And first of all, I'm going to do this etching because I think it looks, well, you could mark all this up with pencil, right, and then just etch this so that you don't have these lines that I'm etching now. And what you want is these 1/2 inch in, they want to go diagonals thusly. Just making sure. So sometimes you can see I just stab in that final bit just to make sure the line goes all the way across. And then this forms the basis from which you form your hexagon. So as you can see, you now have sort of like these lines. So, and I have found that if I take 1/4 inch from either end, 1/4 inch there, and yeah, it come from a land where we supposedly use metric, but in obviously tabletop we end up using imperial, basically because it's a better scale. So things scale better in imperial precisely because it's less accurate, I think. That's the way it works. Tabletop, it doesn't have to be completely accurate as long as everything's consistent. So then, using these as guides, we just etch straight along here. And the reason I'm etching this way is because I then etch straight to the actual corner. Now, if you sat down and worked it out, I'm sure you could make it so this doesn't sit on the corner. But I quite like that it sits on the corner because it's almost like arrows, like saying you can go this way or this way. And that kind of works for me. And so, accuracy matters. So, a bit uncareful there. Main thing is that all the lines meet up, and the etching actually means you've got a bit of leeway on that, because the actual process itself
creates quite a thick line. You're looking about a line about a well, actually it's because my allspike isn't completely sharp. I don't know if you can see that, it's slightly blunt, but it creates a sort of millimetre wide line. Even if you have a sharp one, you end up creating a line with sometimes. So that's my first hexagon, and that gives me a sort of an air of infinity. In the case of this one, I think I'm just going to go half. So then I just measure ½ inch off of the centre point along each of these arms, and that will give me an interior hex. And then, well, in my opinion, I think it looks like a decent bit of, you know, when you get floor tiles in the street, they always these kind of things or patterns always come in sort of pieces, and it's like, so this has been come in pieces and laid up, whereas the flat areas in the middle here are actually just poured concrete as such. Also, the flat areas are probably mostly going to be covered with buildings, which is the other reason I'm not particularly fussed about etching them. Also, if they are not covered by buildings, I will probably put street furniture on them, and so it also provides nice sort of divisions for where street furniture can go, or should go, depending on the point of view. But the lovely thing about doing this at the moment is that it means that the city is almost ready for use. So I know it's probably taking me rather a lot longer than perhaps it ought to, or perhaps you've imagined. So there you go. That just gives me my hex pattern for in all of these corner pieces. Now you could put it in every corner, I think, but I thought that would be a bit over the top. But just having the one here and then the one in its mirrored place, I think works quite well. Just as a bit of sort of street decoration detail. So I'm going to get these all done, and I will be back in a moment with the final phase of etching. There you go, then that's my final details etched in, where I've just got these sort of hexes within hexes with sort of points. I don't know what you call it. It's a design. I think it makes it look pretty. Also, I just like that it just adds a nice detail as such, and I'll probably add a bit of colour there as well. So if everything else is grey, that'll be like, I don't know, that sort of stone reddy terracotta colour with maybe a bluey grey sort of stony colour in the middle, just to give a bit of variety. So last up and the final thing is just doing the coping, which is the edges here. Now I tend to do this at 1 3/8 of an inch in order to minimise the amount of times it matches up with the lines that I've etched in. I don't like the lines to match up, and I also sometimes make it up to 1.5 inches, or sometimes even maybe 2 inches if necessary. So there's a bit of variety in the length of the coping, but that doesn't really matter. The only thing that really matters is when you are doing the coping, you don't just score the top here, you have to score all the actual edges where it rises, otherwise it looks funny once you made it, because it's sort of like, the coping doesn't go down to the ground, and it does look a bit odd. So I shall get all the coping done, and I shall show you the finished etching in just a moment. Here we have it then, the finished etched coping, all complete, street block paving, area dividing, ground basing, city looking, thingamy whatnot, jobber. But yeah, that's me just being silly really. So if I just come in and it goes all mega blurry, and then I hit the focus button, you'll see the coping. I've run the line down around the edge, so it just finishes it off and makes everything look neat and like paving. I think it's quite a nice way of dividing up your city. And as at the beginning of the video you saw, the buildings sit on these kind of things pretty nice. So I hope this has been of some use, interest to you, that you're sitting down spending stupid amounts of hours etching street blocks so that they look how you want street blocks to look. Thank you for watching, have a good one and take care. Bye bye.